Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Turning Pain into Strength podcast. I'm Michelle Eberwein, your host. I am also a certified health practitioner and an author of Turning Pain into Strength. My main reason for launching this True Story Health podcast was so that no one should feel like they were suffering alone with their pain. Talking open and honestly about our pain and the challenges we face, I feel we can improve the way we feel and help others do the same. Listening to others and their stories can help us learn, give us hope, and teach us to keep going without giving up. So this brings me to my very first guest, Kathy O'Shea. And because she is my very first, and this is also my very first podcast, and I forgot to hit record right away, we are talking about an essay written by Joan Didion. I hope I pronounced that right. The essay is called In Bed, and Kathy can relate to this essay because she has been suffering from migraines for 44 years. And this is her reaction when she first connected to this essay. This is how the podcast starts.
So I was given the textbook I was going to use, and the very first essay in it was this, and I just was sobbing after I finished it, and I thought, wow, this person gets it. I mean, like nothing I've ever read. So I reread that in my office that day, several years ago. And then I thought, there must be other authors, there must be other, writers who have either experienced migraine or created characters and personas in poetry who have experienced migraine. And just for my own benefit, I started researching that and looking into them for my own source of comfort and strength. And then gradually I realized, wow, I mean, maybe I could share this with others. There's a way to put this together in a meaningful way to share all of these experiences with other people and help them feel they're less alone.
Yes, fantastic. Now tell me about your book. What is the title of your book?
So my book is So Much More Than a Headache, Understanding Migraine Through Literature. That'll come up inside out, right? Mirrored.
Awesome. Because I work very closely with the Chronic Migraine Association.
Oh, do you really? Oh,
yes,
okay.
I do. I also make awareness bracelets on the side as my therapy. So
Wonderful.
So I've made a lot of chronic migraine bracelets for their fundraisers and things.
Oh,
Like
fantastic.
that. So plus I got a lot of help from them when my son was going through the migraines. And I'm like, I've never heard of children having migraines, especially as debilitating as his were. He couldn't go to school. He, couldn't play with his friends. And I mean, what 13-year-old boy doesn't want to be outside on his dirt bike?
Of course, exactly.
So I understand how life altering that head pain is. It's so unfortunate. It really is.
It is. Now,
mean,
is your son still suffer?
No.
Oh,
We found out that it was actually the migraines were coming from Lyme disease.
wow.
So
Okay.
it did take, oh my gosh, 4 years for 3 years for a diagnosis. When he was 16, he finally got, because he went through every migraine medicine out there.
Yeah.
And when they ran out of medicine, they said, you know what, he's depressed. I'm like, no, he's not depressed. And well, yeah, he just doesn't want to go to school. But he would say that the lights, the fluorescent lights and the noise would bother him. And usually I'd have to pick him up from school like by 1 o'clock. And, it was a battle with these doctors because I knew my son,
Exactly.
And we got kind of the runaround until somebody said to me, has he ever been tested for Lyme disease? I'm like, what? And it's like, you're always riding your quads and stuff in the woods and stuff. Maybe he got bit by a tick. And sure enough, tested positive, not only for Lyme disease, but like all the co-infections. So once we got that out of his system, the headache stopped.
Oh, thankfully. Oh
So it
my.
was more of a secondary issue, the migraine,
Yes,
once
yes,
we
yes.
got the cause, handled.
Right, right.
But,
Well, I'm
I've met
grateful.
so many people that, the migraines are just the migraines. That, they don't have a reason for them, that's their
Sure. It's the disease
diagnosis.
itself. Yeah.
All they
Yeah.
know is the things that make it worse.
Right. The triggers that bring it, right. Either bring it
Yes.
on or make it worse. Exactly.
Yes.
Yep.
But you've been dealing with it for, I mean, my gosh, almost your whole half of your life.
Almost my whole life. Yeah, I'm 60
Yeah.
now. I'm 60. So yeah, since I was 14, I had my first when I was 14. I think most of us remember our first. So
Oh,
and then back in the 70s, which is, when I first started in the late 70s, nobody knew anything about migraine. I mean, it
right.
wasn't taken seriously at all. There was no major research being done.
Mhm.
Nobody knew how to treat it. No medications were out there that were designed just for migraine. You were being treated with medications that were really developed for other illnesses, but sometimes helped with migraine, but usually made me deathly ill. I had
Oh,
to give up sports. I had to give up, acting that I was doing. I had to give up so much.
your whole life.
And at a very young age, really. And my parents, who were wonderful, they were taking me to neurologists who were I one quick story. You were talking about the healthcare and the problems that you have.
Hmm.
My memory, I have a distinct memory when I was 14, my mom taking me to a neurologist and him saying to me, we explained that it really kind of began in my neck and it came over my right eye and all these things. And he said to me, would you like your mom to leave the room so that you can talk to me about what's going on at home? And I just, I'm like, I don't have anything I would talk to you about that. My mother's my best friend, and but
Wow.
the idea again, the lack of understanding, the stigma, the idea that I'm making this up, that it's like you were saying that they weren't believing some of your son, and yet he was getting that hypersensitivity to sound and lights and all these very real effects and aspects of migraine that are there that
Yeah.
we're only now beginning to understand.
Hmm. People are very judgmental, and a doctor is the last person you think would be judging you. And, to say because they've run out of medicine or things to treat him, it's like we have to look outside the box now. Like, and they're like, no,
Right.
he's depressed. We even had family kind of turn against us and say, because I was sick, um, they were saying, well, is he really sick? But not once did anyone ever sit down with me and say,
Right.
you need help. Can I help you go?
Yeah.
Let's go through the meds. What has the doctor said so far? Because at one point he was diagnosed with intracranial hypertension because they did a spinal tap on him and it was high. So they wanted to put a shunt in his head that drained into his stomach because they said that the brain fluid was too high, because now they finally got a diagnosis why this
Right.
has migraines. And I said to my husband, I said, I'm not letting them do that. And he said, well, why? I said, something feels off to have major, massive surgery like
Yes.
that, brain surgery with a piping down into his stomach. I said, Rob, I'm not
Unbelievable.
doing this. And he said, okay. Well, that's when the family raised the flags and said that I wasn't agreeing with the doctor, that I was doctor shopping. Yet no one sat down with me and said, let's help. Let's pull together
Right.
as a family and let's see where we're at. Because, as you know, you deal with your own illnesses and you get buried. Now I got a child,
Right. Exactly.
but what you live and learn, I guess, and you just make your circle smaller and you
Yes, you do.
protect. I mean, sure. So I go ahead and write a book and put it all out there. Very vulnerable, but
Right. Of course.
you have to make your circle of support very strong and very small. I
You
see your
do.
support
And
back
you,
there, though.
what's that?
Your support
That's
dog's there.
my therapy dog. No, he is a registered therapy dog, but he's
He
not
is
an emotional support dog,
beautiful.
but a therapy dog. But yeah, that's Oliver back there. He was the therapy dog. One of my two. I lost my other golden recently, well, several months ago.
Oh, I'm
Um,
sorry.
but they were both therapy dogs at the college where I worked, so I got to take them
Oh,
to work with me every day. So for
that
everybody
is
else,
fantastic. Small
yeah.
wins, right? Those are the
Yeah,
small wins.
absolutely. Yeah. It cheered so many people and made so many people feel better. So
Sure, how can
yeah,
it not? Well,
it
maybe
was a
not dog
positive.
lovers, but I'm a huge
Right. But
dog
I
lover.
found few of those. There were a few of
Right. Those
those.
people stay indoors.
Yeah, they do. Right. And they should.
So back, yeah. So back to your story. So
Sure.
obviously you had a dark time.
Yes.
Did you, and that was, did you go through a dark time as a teenager, even with these massive
Yeah.
headaches?
I
How were your friends and stuff during that time?
yeah, it was very hard because you know, I remember one day in particular, I had been, very involved in things at school, but I took stress very I felt highly stressed and
Okay.
anxious a lot because I was taking on too much. And so I
Okay.
was involved in every sport I could be. I was in a play. I was, editor of the yearbook, all this kind of stuff, which I say only because one day my mom and dad came home from work and they found me on the bathroom floor and I had been in there sick and from the migraine and but I couldn't lift my head off the floor. And I remember my dad saying, that's it, you've got to give up this and this because it's going to
Too
kill you.
much. Yeah.
And which was probably true in some respect, but it was agonizing for me
Mm-hmm.
to go from being somebody that active, involved, to having withdrawn from so many things that I loved. It significantly affected me.
Sure.
Um, so that was a really dark time, I would say,
Mhm.
when, in my high school years, when I later had to give up a lot of those. That was kind of my junior, senior year in high school.
Very important years. Yeah.
Very important years, yes. And I've gone through many dark times with it, where I would feel like, I think after my hysterectomy, I
Mm.
came out of that with the worst migraine I'd ever had in my
Oh
life.
no.
And the hospital doctors would not contact my headache specialist. Instead, they said, we have a cocktail that you're going to love that's going to take care of this. And I distinctly remember this. It was late at night and I was screaming in pain. I'd never had anything this awful. And they made things so much worse. I ended up with rebound headache and,
Oh no.
headache over, medication overuse. And that took forever for me. It took me longer to recover from that than it did the hysterectomy.
Holy
Um,
cow.
but the emotional aspects of both of those things at the same time and the sacrifices were very difficult in my 30s.
Wow. Did you have anybody for support at that time?
My husband, and I've always managed to have a close-knit circle of friends. But
Okay,
as
good.
you mentioned too about narrowing that circle, it's inevitable because
Mhm.
what you find is that so many people don't get it, don't want to get it, so they don't, like you said, they don't ask enough. They don't want to sit down and try to be, I hate this, what you said, the word educated, but learn about what migraine really is. It's not just a headache. It
Right.
affects your whole being. It affects you cognitively, physically, emotionally. And so living with that disease
Mhm.
is isolating
Very.
because you often have to give up things. You have to at the last minute cancel things. You have to cancel out on friends. You need the kind of strong understanding support network that really understand you,
Hmm.
understand the disease, and they stay with you.
They
um,
understand. Yeah.
exactly. And I've been blessed to have that circle, um, and not everybody does. And
No.
that's one reason that I wanted to share the literature with people, because if they don't have that in their own lives, at least they can see that that other people have been there too, and that
Someone has been there. Yes.
somebody's been there. They can, they can vicariously, explore and know that other people have been there and they're not alone.
Right, right. Because that's so important. I think once you find somebody that understands, your whole world changes. It really
Yes.
does. And when you've been alone for so long, I have talked to women that have just been in bed for so long, depressed, thinking that nobody understands. And then, they join a support group for chronic pain or illness. And it's like, wow, there's people like me out there. And it's
Yes.
so great. It's really
I
great
agree.
that you can contribute and help people.
Yeah.
So when is the last time you were in this darkness? Hopefully it's been a long time, but I'd like to see what tools you've used to help you get out of that last time you were in I call it the dark hole because we all know
Yeah.
we've been in that.
I was in it briefly, not that
Really?
long ago, I must say. Uh,
Okay.
I had a 10-day migraine that and it had been long enough since I'd had one last that long that, and it wasn't full blown. So I wasn't like bedridden for 10 days. They
Mhm.
have a cycle to them and
Yeah.
it fluctuates. But, I would call it what I always have called it like a functional migraine, where I can do
Okay.
the basics I have to do to get
Hmm.
through the day, but I'm not going to do anything extra. I can't.
Yeah.
And I'm not well. And it's there all the time.
Hmm.
And I I see a general neurologist now, but there are so few headache specialists in our country. It's one of the biggest problems we have, those who suffer from migraine, is that, people who are exploring the field of neurology are not specializing in migraine.
No.
And so in the Rochester area, we used to have several, at least I can say several, even though we're a big community of
Yeah, I would think you could
hospitals.
have some big headache
Major,
doctors.
yes, we do. We had a major headache clinic at the University of Rochester, and we
Mhm.
have a lot of hospitals in the area, but we have very few headache specialists. In fact, I think we're down to one in the area. And even when mine retired 16 years ago now, he had 300 patients at that time. So where do they all
Wow.
go? Right. So
Wow.
anyway, I was going to say I have a general neurologist, but they're not really, and they're very frank about it. She's frank about it. She's a good neurologist,
Mhm.
but she admits she doesn't stay really up on all the current migraine treatments um and isn't interested in migraine as much as some other um, fields of neurology. And
Yeah.
so I see now primarily a PA who suffers
Mhm.
from migraine herself. So at least she's, very
Was a
compassionate.
connection, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But that practice is not taking advantage of some of the most current treatment options available.
Mhm.
And so when I was going through this 10-day period, I was beginning to think, getting that fear that I'm not going to come out of this, because you eventually get that fear that,
Yeah.
how long is this going to last? What's going to bring me out of it? None of my rescue medications are working. None of the things I normally do are helping.
Mhm.
And, so I was in a dark place again. But fortunately, it was
It lifts because your headache lifts and then
everything lifts with it. It's like, I describe it as waking up with this euphoria
Mhm.
that, this is how normal people wake up. I mean, it's like you forget and
Wow.
and everything about the migraine lifts from you. The same, and uh,
Like you said, a euphoria
it
because
is.
it's just such relief, happiness. I mean, it's just so
It's
much
just
one
unbelievable.
wall.
You appreciate the little things like, that like you wouldn't believe. It's
Mhm.
well, you would, but
Yeah.
it's so when you get those brief moments, if you do.
Yeah.
Uh, but then, the other thing that I think a lot of migraine sufferers deal with, and I've written about this, is the fear of the next attack.
That's what I was gonna ask you then. Do you live in fear of when the next one's coming? And you just never know because there's no pattern, right?
Right. I mean, you know your triggers, right? But you can't always control those.
Right.
Sometimes we do things that we know are not good for us, but we do them anyway for a variety of reasons. But you don't know. You don't know if you're going to be. It's going to be hours. It could be by the end of the day, it's back. Or it could be that you get a couple good weeks, or you just don't know. And so there's actually a term for it, and I can never pronounce it, so I won't try. But there is. It's a phobia. And it literally translates into the fear of the next headache attack,
Mhm.
and it almost settles in just so quickly after that euphoria
Yeah, I
that
was gonna
you start
say.
you wonder, like, how much can I do during this period while I'm still feeling good, but
Mhm.
how much should I do, because I don't want to bring on another. So it's tricky, and it's finding that line, that balance.
How do you balance that? I think I would just live in so much fear of that because it is so life altering. So,
Yes.
how do you manage that? I mean, you must manage that pretty well because you've had so many years of living like this. But somebody with that's been diagnosed with migraines, recently, how do you tell them to manage that fear?
um I tell them that, well, what I would say to them is that we're living in a fortunate time for migraine, more than any other time, for sure. And that there is so much more, not nearly enough, but a lot more federal resources, but you can, if you read anything about Headache on the Hill,
Hmm.
where people are constantly trying to push for, I mean, 39 million people suffer from migraine, and really very little is given to migraine research. However, I will say, in the last 5 to 7 years, we've been able to develop these CGRPs that are have been so much more effective, because we better understand what triggers migraine and what's really going on, and that it's a disease in the brain. It's something that's going on in the brain, and these medications have been designed specifically for migraine.
Hmm.
And the problem I think a lot of people run into, a lot of us run into, is that it's a lot of trial and error, which can be extraordinarily frustrating, and it can be disheartening. It
Hmm.
can be depressing, because you try something, then your doctor's up on it and says this is one of the latest, new drugs out there, and then it doesn't work for you.
Right.
But it does take trial and error. The
It
other thing is
does.
that there are these non-medical treatments that have proven to be very effective. One that I'm probably on a podcast, not supposed to mention a brand name.
Oh, I don't know. I don't think so. It's fine. I'm
Okay,
not getting
great.
paid for anything.
Well, I was told that once, I recall, so I just wanted to be careful. But the Cephally device,
Mhm.
I don't know if you're familiar with it, but
No.
I'm a real proponent. I don't get a dime for pushing it, but um, I've written about it in. I write a blog, a biweekly blog for Psychology Today on migraine.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've written a couple of articles about it and its usefulness. But what it is essentially, it's you have an electrode that you place on your forehead, and then there's like this small device that goes on. It magnetically connects with the the electrode, and
Okay.
then it goes through the range of the occipital nerve, and you can feel it like
Oh.
electrically going, a current going through the entire trigeminal and occipital nerve system. So
Mhm.
it's and what I do is I use it. You can use it preventatively, and you can use it for acute pain,
Okay.
and I use it for both.
Right.
Um,
And that seems to help you very much.
it's something that is has been a very effective tool for me for years and years.
Oh.
And you can get it without prescription now. And it's a wonderful company to work with, because if it doesn't work for you, they give you 60 days, I believe it is,
And you can
and you
return
can
it.
return it
Oh,
without any
wow.
questions. They're a good company.
It's like a TENS unit for your
It
brain.
kind of, it resembles that. It feels a
Mhm.
little bit like that in a certain way, but it runs a certain course and a certain pattern that it takes through the and following the nerve system. So anyway, but there are other devices out there now too, that people are finding to be effective.
Yes.
So I guess I would say to people that you keep trying, and make sure that you keep, like you mentioned, keep advocating for yourself. You have to be a
Have
self
to.
advocate. You absolutely have to be. And you've got to be educated. You've got to learn yourself about the new and current treatments.
Oh,
It's
yes.
imperative that
Mhm.
you are up to date, so that sometimes you can
You have
teach
to
the
inform the
doctors.
doctor.
Yes, you do. You do.
Yes, definitely. I was a medical assistant for a doctor, and I
Oh,
can't tell you how many patients were so into their diagnosis because, I worked for a family doctor. He's just doing what he can do. He has
yes,
zero time to dive into learning about a migraine
of
or
course.
fibromyalgia or
Right.
anything. So we would have some patients coming in with an entire folder of everything that they've learned on their condition and wanted to share it with the doctor. And that's kind of how it is now. There's no time for these
Yes.
doctors
No, I
to
totally
be
understand
dedicated.
that. Absolutely. No,
No,
I don't blame the doctors in that respect at all.
no. And I wish that they would, but you can't. You have to be
yeah,
your
it's
own
not
person.
feasible. It really isn't.
No. So you have to be your own doctor for your own
Yeah,
condition.
you do. And you have to say, would it be possible for me to try this? Can we try to
Mhm.
get my insurance to cover this?
Right. Oh, the
And
insurance is
that's a
another
whole nother
story.
battle, right? We could talk for an hour about that.
Oh, the insurance, it's a blessing and a curse, but
Yes.
yeah, that's a whole nother podcast.
Yes, absolutely it
This is
is.
a happy podcast.
Yes, that's right. And we'll stay with that, right?
Yes, for sure. So
But
you have some tools in your toolbox for these migraines. And were you diagnosed with fibromyalgia or any
no, I
any
have not.
system diseases? That's great.
The other comorbidity I have now, and I've only developed that in recent years, is POTS, which
That's it.
they
Yeah.
have learned a lot since COVID. Apparently,
Mhm.
has it's become much more. People become much more aware of it and have
Yes.
learned a lot more about it. And so I was diagnosed maybe 5 years ago with it,
Okay.
and had broken my back twice from falls and passing out, and um,
Wow.
so but there is 30% of all, I think it's 30% of all POTS patients also suffer from my chronic migraine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, my daughter-in-law was just recently diagnosed with POTS,
Really?
and yeah, she does battle with migraines as well. But
No.
there's also a connection to having COVID has now affected and caused a lot of these POTS symptoms, which
Yes.
brother just told me that. And I haven't yet been able to research that, but I thought that was kind of fascinating that they're tying COVID into this somehow.
They are. In fact, that's why my neurologist told me that she was the one who first suspected that's what my symptoms were. And she was saying that we're gonna finally see a lot more awareness of POTS and a lot more research being done on it finally because of COVID, because COVID brought on so many cases of it.
Wow. It's just a crazy, crazy world. My
I
goodness.
know, I
Who would have
know.
known?
The
Who would
only other thing I wanted to add is that, and you talked about positive things, like what do you do to stay positive and to get through these dark times?
Mhm.
We all, because we all have our own personal kind of, darkness, that we deal with, and we also have to have our own ways of coping and trying to get out of that. And I know that, it's different for so many people, but, I do think they always say exercise, but, I do believe, and you always think, well, I'm dealing with migraine, I can't exercise.
Yeah.
But, I have found that even a little, smallest amount, or just getting outside, walking my
It's
dog,
helpful.
something like that, can really reduce the stress of it,
Mhm.
and the fear. Um, because I remember when I was going through this 10-day period not very long ago, I was
Yeah.
actually that day I was finally able to take Ollie on a walk again.
Mhm.
And I was on the walk and we were climbing the hill. And when we started down, I thought I could feel the one step I was taking. I thought, oh, am I feeling that again? And that's when I realized I was starting the real fear of getting it back.
Hmm.
And I started to think, just stay in the moment, stay present, be mindful.
Yeah.
And that really is helpful to me. And trying to live in the present. I have a tendency to live too much in the future or past. And I've always preached to my students as well, the importance of mindfulness and trying to stay in the moment. And if you
Hmm.
can do that, then you're not having quite so much fear about what's coming.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That is a good point about everything and when the next migraine attack will happen. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's one way. But I think that would be so hard dealing with such excruciating pain and mind-altering pain too. I mean, because that
Yeah,
just affects everything that you're thinking and
it does. It really does. When you're in the midst, in the throes of it, I'm not sure, I'm not all that effective at that either.
Mhm.
Um, I think it's when you're in the depths of it, it's of any pain, any chronic pain. It's very, it's very difficult to find. I think that's where I rely on my support system.
Mhm.
They keep me going. My network of friends and family, and I've been blessed with, all my life with, very supportive parents. Uh, and I'm struggling now a little bit because I'm sort of helping to take care of them, as they're, they're 85 and 86. Uh, and so I think I've gone through more migraine, a period of more of them, in the last months, than I had been for a while because
Stress
of,
brings that on, right?
course, stress
Stress.
for me is a major trigger.
Now, your husband, when you have these attacks, he's very supportive. Does he takes over the things that you normally would do?
Yeah, he does.
The
Now he's
dogs, the
made some.
dinners, you know?
Yeah, he over the years he's been marvelous. I mean, we've been married 36 years, I think now,
Mhm.
and he has. Now I will say that he has major health issues himself right now.
Okay,
Um,
so he understands compassion,
oh,
empathy. He
sure,
has.
but it's harder for him now to take care of me when I'm going through this. And that's a little more difficult,
Yeah,
because he
adjustment.
used to just take right over, and he's not really able to do that now. So that makes managing a little harder, but I just rely on other people a bit more. um,
Okay.
yeah, which I
You
think
found a way
we have
around
found
it.
a way. Yeah, we found a way.
That's good because there's some
But
people that wouldn't.
I'm gonna say, I always have to come back and say I'm blessed. Here I am talking about all my struggles and the darkness and the difficulties, but I've been blessed because I've had good people around me, that love me, and I've been blessed with good health care generally,
Mhm.
generally speaking, compared to a lot of people.
Sure.
And I know, I guess I want to say that I know so many don't have all of that. And so
Right.
here you're suffering with these illnesses without those things. And I just don't know. I feel so desperately for those people.
Right, but that shouldn't minimize your struggles and what you're going through. There's always somebody that has it worse.
True.
But we're still going through what we're going through. So you should have a voice. You should be able to share your story and share how you've helped yourself so that someone else could say, "Oh, I love golden retrievers too. And I'm really having a bad day. I saw this podcast with this lady and she, gave me A, B, and C on how to have a better day." Those are the things that I'm doing. I'm taking these tragedies and pulling out the good stuff.
That's wonderful.
I want your
That's
tools. I want to know about your darkest day, not because I want to walk through the misery with you, but that moment that you came out of it. How? Someone needs to hear that. And so I'm taking these tragedies and horrible things that happened, and not for comparison or judgment.
sure.
Somebody else is laying on the floor wondering if they're going to make it till tomorrow.
Yes.
And it's because they have chronic migraines, because they hurt so bad. They don't want to live another day.
Right. No, and I've been
Those are the people we're helping.
right.
Those are the people.
And I've been there, you know.
Yeah.
So I know that. And you're right. I think exactly what you're doing is wonderful. And but it's very important, the work
It
you're
is.
doing. It really is. I
I
can't
hope so,
emphasize.
because we've all been there,
Yes.
and someone might be laying on the floor in a fetal position for a way less reason than me or you. And that doesn't make a difference. They're on
No,
the floor. Let's help them.
let's help them up.
So please don't say that, you feel sorry for all these people because they have it worse than you. No, this is
That's a
your
good point.
story. This
That's a
is
good
your
point.
story and your pain, and there should be no comparison. So don't say that anymore.
Okay, I'm done. Thank you. No, you are absolutely right, and I appreciate that.
No,
Thank you.
and I definitely want to get your book. I definitely want to put that on my website if you don't mind. Your
I
book.
would love it if you put on your website. I'd be happy to send you a PDF of the book, and so that you can, I can do that, right away.
I'm gonna actually get it, and then
Okay.
so I can put it back here. So when I do my
Okay.
podcast, it'll be back here
Wonderful. I
as
appreciate
well, if
that.
you don't mind. Yes, I wanted to definitely do that. Now the podcast doesn't come out until April 1st, so I will
Okay.
let you know, of course, when yours will be coming out, and
Okay.
then we'll definitely talk about your book and things like that as well. So that
Is
that
it going along well?
I've got a lot of interviews, yes, just about
Wonderful.
every day. So I'm
Fantastic.
just going through. I didn't realize how many people would want to tell their story.
I think that's wonderful, though. That's a tribute to you because it means you've really hit, a chord there that
I
a
hope
real need.
so. I mean,
You've
I
had
hope
a real
so.
need. Yeah, you
And I just
definitely.
love meeting everybody. It's
I
like,
know.
oh, these stories, they're just, I mean, I just feel so blessed that people want to share their story with me. And then I could put it on a platform like, you're not the only ones out there, like we're going to get through this.
I think that's marvelous. Thank you. I thank you for doing it. I really do.
No, I have to. I've had dark days as well.
I'm sure you have, given what little I know of your story. I'm going to know a lot more of your story, though. I'm going to order your book.
Yes, I've had some really dark days, and I'm glad that I was able to get out of them. I mean, there's so many things I would have missed. So
Yes.
I definitely I have to help others, because
I
if
feel
I was
that
lucky to
strongly
get
too.
out, yeah,
I know that one thing that's kind of frustrating is that when, you get on, like Facebook organizations or groups like that, and
yeah,
you can't put your book on there, which I understand they don't want, but the point is what I always try to say is that I'm not trying to make a dime. I'm never going to make a dime on this book. I had to put $10,000 into writing it because I had to get author permissions from every author that, because a lot of them are very well-known authors.
oh, okay,
And but I had the blessing, may I just say, that the president of the Association of Migraine Disorders, Dr. Godley, wanted to originally help me budget for this project because I was just I'm a community college professor, right? So I don't have that kind of money. So he was going to have the organization help fund the book
Mhm.
before I'd even finished writing it. And then he
Okay.
found out that I was not a non-for-profit. So he couldn't do that. He wrote me
Mhm.
a personal check
Oh, wow. Very
to help
kind
me.
man.
No, extraordinarily. The book could not have been completed, could
Oh.
not have been published without that because I
Mhm.
didn't have that kind of budget. I just couldn't
Yeah.
do it. So
No, you need
anyway,
money to fund the book for sure.
yeah, and so like I said, you probably know how this works. You don't make a dime, unless you're a big time writer,
Right.
So, and yeah, I mean, it's so minuscule. So it's not that I don't want that. That's not the goal of it. It's not what
Right.
I'm after. I want to help people.
Right.
If I can find, like, I believe so, so viscerally that
Mhm.
literature can help us be
Yeah.
less alone and suffer less and
Mhm.
say, and find the people that get it. And so I believe that so strongly. I've committed my whole life to literature, and that I want to, if people can find one or two short stories or poems or an excerpt from a novel that hits them in that way, then the book has done its job.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like it's a little bit of therapy because they say music is therapy. This is the exact same thing.
It is.
So it'll be really nice for sure for somebody. And I mean, I don't have a lot of followers, but the ones that I do have will definitely see your book.
And I'm sure
Most of
with
them
your
are chronic pain patients.
as your podcast develops, you'll have a lot more followers, I'm sure.
I hope so. We're getting there.
A lot of work though, isn't it? Doing a podcast?
Yes, especially dealing with chronic pain and illness. I have somebody helping me, but some days are rougher than others.
I'm sure.
But it's so worth it, and I'm so passionate about it. So
Right.
that pushes me through.
It does, and that's something that people need too, is a passion, that
Yes.
because the book was that for me.
It was your
for
therapy.
years.
Yes.
Yeah, it was. That's something I could throw myself into.
It takes a minute off of you when you're delving into something else. It really helps take a focus off your pain and off of what you're going through. Even if it's just for a minute, it gives you that mental break.
You're absolutely right.
And then your dog is cracking me up. He's like, looks around and lays right back down.
Oh, did he look around? Did he get up and look around? He's like, oh, I'm tired. I just took him for a walk beforehand, so he'd be tired.
He's very tired.
So he wouldn't bother us while we were doing this.
No. I am a dog lover. I locked mine out of the room. He's not happy.
Yeah. Well, my cat was staring at me through the window, like and he starting to meow, and I was thinking, "Oh, be quiet, please be quiet."
No. Big animal lover here.
Great.
That would be amazing. Kathy, is there anything else that you wanted to share, or
No, I think it's been wonderful. I've really enjoyed talking with you.
Great. I'm so glad that you decided to come on my podcast. I think it'll be great for someone to get your book and have that to help with their healing.
I hope it can. I sure hope it can. All right. I'm looking forward to reading yours as well.
Thank you so much. And I will let you know when the podcast is coming out.
That's great.
And yeah, it'll be really exciting. Definitely. Thank you so much.
I wish you all the best with your own struggles too. I really do.
Thank you. You too. You take it one day at a time.
Same to you. Take care.
All right. Take care. Kathy.
Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So that was Kathy's story, and I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you like tomorrow's episode with Frank Rivera. And in the meantime, please hit that subscribe button, and I will see you for tomorrow's edition. Bye-bye. Take care.